Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Welcome back.
Well, I think this is a very Pete-centric episode.
It is. We've talked about doing an episode like this for a while.
Yes, we have.
And
yes, we have.
The moment is now.
I'm very excited for this. I've been waiting a long time. Listeners, my name is Pete.
And I'm Scott.
And these are
the movies that made us gay, or IP or property that made us gay.
I love it. Well, we have a very special guest on the show today, all the way from across the pond, from TrekCulture. We have Seán Ferrick. Seán, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Oh, my goodness. Listen to that.
Oh, stop.
I have a reception for you and everything.
Thank you so much. That is brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I am a fan of Star Trek, obviously, but I found TrekCulture on YouTube. And I have to say, the recaps are amazing, for all the new shows. So Discovery as well as Lower Decks, which I love. But what really got me are the kind of like behind the scenes facts about the ships. Oh man, I love those episodes. Things you didn't know about, Enterprise E, all that.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, there's just so much information there. Our writer Paul Sutherland, I don't know where he comes up with some of this information. It's incredible. He is our go-to guy for ships. Like, I'm pretty sure he could build a warp core. And as long as you just don't ask him where he got the materials from, I think you'll be fine.
I was going to say out of household objects, maybe.
We'll discuss that bit off.
Later. But I really connected to TrekCulture through there, and then just kind of in doing a little bit of research, watching your videos and also Adam Clary, and just kind of being the cyber stalker that I am, I was like, I knew there was something about Seán Ferrick that I could latch onto, and it's being a queer person talking about Star Trek and sci-fi, and I was just like, it's just so crazy how there is just such this kind of like queer embracing of Star Trek as a whole, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's funny because in a way over the last couple of years, and I suppose specifically since 2016 with the release of Star Trek Beyond, there has been a very open conversation about the inclusivity of Star Trek at the moment in terms of representation, in terms of the queer community, which had been, if we're just brutal about it for a second, it had been lacking in the franchise up to that point. There had been attempts, and there are some wonderful, wonderful examples and some not so wonderful examples. But, since the 50th anniversary, it's gotten an awful lot better. And yet, as you say, it has been this almost like this green light on the dock that we're all looking at, that so many queer people just tend to gravitate towards Star Trek. Yeah. And I think, not to get too mushy about it, but I think it's because it preaches this utopian, better future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when it really comes down to it, that's kind of what brings in, queer people and kind of gives us this idea of like, okay, we can, fit in somewhere. Yeah, that's when it's a little mushy, but I think you're right. I think that's what it comes down to. Because again, we were talking a little bit before. We've done a Star Wars episode on the show, and there are definitely queer Star Wars fans, but I really feel like the fandom for Star Trek, slash fiction originated.
Yes, it did.
Oh, did it?
1967.
I didn't know that.
That's what the slash is.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, slash fiction, I know I'm going to get some of the facts wrong here. I know that it's 1967, and I know that it's Kirk Spock, which is where slash fiction originates from. I know the author, whose name escapes me. I know she was a female author. Right. She published in a magazine, and it was the beginning of what we now know colloquially as slash fiction. and
because it was Kirk /
just,
Spock.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is, you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
And it just took off in a way that I don't think anyone was quite expecting at the time.
Yeah,
kind of slash fiction has gone on to other kind of big.
Oh, it's everywhere. It's Harry
big
Potter.
franchises. Harry Potter. I didn't learn about slash fiction until I was in college, and a friend told me about Harry Potter slash fiction.
Yeah,
and I was just like, "Excuse me, excuse me, this is a thing."
Yeah.
100%. Actually, I myself have read quite a few Harry and Cedric fictions, and I have quite enjoyed them.
Oh, yes. Oh, Harry and Cedric.
I think the one that my friend told me about, of course, was Harry and Draco.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think like that at this point should just like transcend slash fiction and just be its own HBO series. Like either a side series to the Harry Potter, like the main storyline, or we could just do, well, what happens in Wizard College?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Experimenting with the bodies. Yeah.
There you go.
100%.
Experimentation. I love it. I mean, I didn't see one. We got 8 movies. I did not see one health class.
Yeah.
Or sex education pamphlet.
They have to figure that shit out for themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, look, we're going to experiment. We're going to experiment with wands. We'll experiment with other things as well. And look, it's very important that we have a very well-rounded education course, and I really feel this has gone down a rabbit hole, but I regret nothing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Star Trek is a 50-plus-year-old franchise, and when we're talking about this slash fiction kind of, emergence in the 60s, you said, the show came out in the 60s. This is, pre-everything.
Yep.
Nerd culture. Not, internet, conventions, all of that. And Star Trek kind of had a hand in all of that shit, right? I mean...
Yes, it did. Actually, you mentioned conventions, specifically conventions. It's not to say that Star Trek invented the convention circuit, but it was how quickly the conventions exploded that kept Star Trek was dead in 1969. It was a failed television show. It had lost in the ratings pretty much every single week to shows like Lost in Space. And, if that had been the end of Star Trek, it would have been another footnote in television history, despite the things that it had done. It had put a black woman on the bridge, and the importance of Nichelle Nichols and Uhura has been discussed ad nauseum, and rightly so.
Yeah.
It had put an Asian man on the bridge at a time when, people were still dealing with the fallout of World War II.
Yeah.
And then you also had the Cold War was raging. You had a Russian, let's be honest, the fifth Beatle was sitting there, played by the very non-Russian Walter Koenig, which was hilarious. And that's fine. And that colored how I understood Russian people for the entirety of the 90s.
Absolutely.
My mind was blown when I saw an interview with him, and it's just like,
what?
What do you mean that's not how you say nuclear vessels? But all of that could have easily been forgotten. And then the fans just connected with it in a way that, obviously they had hoped, but no one had really expected, because there was no precedent. There was nothing to say everyone's going to get together in a hotel dressed up as their favorite characters. And then the animated series came along, and, it was kind of a gasp of breath. It's actually like I've just done a rewatch of it. It's so 70s. I love it. But it was like a little gasp of breath.
You regularly watch the animated series like
on Paramount Plus
all the time.
It's gas. But the counterclock incident, I just watch and watch and watch. I love that episode. I love the fact it was literally like somebody sat down and said, right, how much can we get away with drawing, and exactly how many characters can we get James Doohan to voice before we have to pay him?
He does so many voices. Nichelle Nichols and Majel Barrett do. 2 actresses do every female voice on that show. I love it. But it is so 70s. Oh, my goodness.
Now, what's the production company behind it?
That's Filmation.
It's Filmation.
Filmation.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
So they had also, correct me if I'm wrong, they had also done, I want to say it's Masters of the Universe, or am I making that up in my head?
No, they
Masters
did Masters
and She-Ra.
I was going to say that's why all the female characters on the sexy lady planet, they all look like She-Ra. They all have the one face. But
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But yeah, the animated series did kind of breathe new life into the show, as low budget as it was.
Mm-hmm. And what year was the animated series?
72 to 73.
Okay.
It officially has 2 seasons, but the second season is like 6 episodes. So it's pretty much the one, if you know.
And I'm assuming that's a Saturday morning show.
Yes.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, I know that's where I caught it. Even though obviously I caught it on reruns, it was still, it was a Saturday morning show.
Yeah, same.
I remember my dad probably just to be like, Sean, shut up for a while. Here's some nice animation. Okay, this is great.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I remember just being transfixed by it. And having done the rewatch, actually, I'd be interested to see, Peter, what you think of this. Having done the rewatch of it, right, okay, the animation has aged and the music has aged, and that's fine. But as far as stories go, they could be just any other episode of the original series. They didn't skimp when it came to the actual writing. It's just the execution sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean,
and also Filmation just had a reputation of doing that.
Sure.
All throughout their series too.
But you know, it's for being a show, I mean, ostensibly aimed at children, it doesn't talk down to the kids at all. It doesn't dumb down any of the subject matter or anything like that. And they're kind of high concept sci-fi shows. So, and that, I think that's the thing about Star Trek too, is that, you know, again, I'm going to stop going back to Star Wars, but you know, this was something that they really kind of took to heart, almost too much so, in the making of the motion picture, in that Star Wars is fantasy, Star Wars is for the entire family. Star Trek, this is hard sci-fi. This is high concept ideas. This is, you know, 2001 for the masses.
Absolutely. And I was actually just this week reading this great interview with George Lucas about, it was a retrospective about kind of how Star Wars came to be, both in terms of the ideas behind it and then the logistics of how it came to be. And he credits Star Trek as setting the stage, not that it inspired the story of Star Wars, but that because of Star Trek and shows like Star Trek, they were able to get these ideas greenlit, that there was an audience for it.
Yeah.
And then, funnily enough, Star Wars comes out, it does absolute gangbusters and changes the way people looks at cinema, and then every other studio, and including Fox, go, oh my good God, we need to do sci-fi and we need to do it now.
Yeah.
What do we got? What do we got? Here, what's that weird Roddenberry fella doing today? He's just hanging around a lot. Do you have any ideas for us? What's phase 2? No, don't like that one, but we do like that idea. And then the motion picture.
Here's your blank check.
And, I mean, going right into, you know, the films, Star Trek, the motion picture, it's like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my good God.
It's insane.
It literally, like you mentioned, you're so right. It takes so much inspiration from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Like when they're flying through the cloud, that is their version of the space gate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, there is, you know, many's a time it's been, shall I say, late on a Friday, and you know, I'll just be like, what, and I will have to say the word "what" 3 times. Will I watch this evening? Yeah. I know. Star Trek the motion picture, and I know I'm going to have a good time. Is it the most exciting film in the world? No.
Yeah.
It is, however, visually very impressive.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, the motionless picture is an absolutely fair nickname.
also, like, the director that they got from it. I mean, it's the director.
Yeah.
It's Robert Wise who did The Haunting and The Sound of Music. So, I mean, Paramount was breaking out the big guns when doing the Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't fucking around.
West Side Story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, we'll just get this little known fella. Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right. So,
insane.
As you say, they wanted this film to do well, and they wanted it so much that the fact that it wasn't massively well received, it wasn't slated or anything, it made money, but it cost a ton of money as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't the success they wanted it to be. And so they took a load of money off it and said, oh, throw us out a sequel, will you? And then we got The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, which, I mean...
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, I'm not super familiar with a lot of the Star Trek movies, but I do love me some Wrath of Khan.
Sure.
Iconic.
Sure. Iconic. I mean, and it also starts the legendary Star Trek film rule of all the even numbers are good, all the odd numbers are not so good.
Simon Pegg and what was it? Was it Spaced?
I think it's in Spaced where they initially say it, and not one of the movies. But I mean, it's true. Everybody just knows it's true.
It's so funny. Like, and in fairness, like, obviously, listen, it is literally my job to talk about / defend Star Trek. I reject that claim out of hand. It is nonsense. It's mean. It's also, I mean, I see where people are coming from.
Yeah.
And I also see that they made Star Trek Nemesis to break the rule. See, aren't they so considerate?
I don't know about that. Nemesis, man, that one. Okay.
But it was number 10. It was an even number.
It was number 10. What's the rule about? I think Galaxy Quest fits in there somewhere. And that one breaks. That one breaks the rule. If you fit that one in as a Star Trek movie, it breaks.
I
the
like
rule.
that a lot. I like that a lot. Because I think Galaxy Quest. Because I was only writing about this the other day. That comes late 90s. I think it comes after First Contact, before Insurrection. I like, although that does make Insurrection an even film.
Insurrection, I think, was 98, and Galaxy Quest was December of 99.
Oh, okay.
Do you know? I went into Insurrection when I was in the 6th grade. Blind. I didn't really grow up on Star Trek. Like, I wasn't introduced to it by a parent.
Yeah.
Like, I went to the Saturday matinee at my small town theater, and they were playing Star Trek Insurrection, and I went in blind, knowing nothing about Star Trek. And I think that I just sat in the theater, what the fuck is going on in this movie?
Oh, that is such a, because you know, the big criticism it gets is, it's like a long episode of the Next Generation, and then we're going like, we love the Next Generation, that's great. But if I'd never seen an episode of the Next Generation, I'll be like, what's going on? Why is the albino dude going weird? What's happening? Why did he shave his beard? He looks ridiculous. And why is that fella getting his arse shaved, like pulled up over his face? I don't understand what's happening.
Left the theater a very confused 12-year-old boy. Yep.
It wasn't until I came around and started forcing him to watch all this Star Trek.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of that basic Star Trek fan that I didn't grow up on Star Trek, but I definitely remember the J.J. Abrams movies when I was in college.
Oh, well, there you go.
Because, like, we all saw Star Trek 2009. Like, it was a huge deal when it came out.
And it made stupid amounts of money at the cinema, because this was now if you think the last maybe 15 years, we've sort of changed the way we look at a successful film. Now, like, if a film doesn't do hundreds of millions of dollars, it's a flop. Whereas before Star Trek 2009, the Voyage Home, the one with the whales, that had been the most successul Star Trek film, because it hadn't cost relatively an awful lot of money, and I think it made somewhere in the thing about $150 million, which was crazy for the third sequel to an okay sci-fi film.
Yeah.
And then along comes Star Trek 2009, and it's just like, I'll have your wallet, and I'll have your wallet. Yeah, thank you very much.
I mean, that's the thing about the film series with the original series cast, is that, you know, even with the motion picture in 79, these are actors of a certain
That's what
age.
always gets me whenever I revisit these movies, that I'm just like, everybody in this movie is fucking old. It's just like, now it's just like, you have to have like Chris Pine, nice arms, just like all of these guys on the Enterprise just need to sort of be in shape.
Yeah.
And you just get like all these old men.
Even Bones, they got freaking Carl Urban for Bones. Like, he's the skinniest. Like, DeForest Kelly, I love him, but he just has the physique of Mr. Burns.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I know exactly, because like my experience with Carl Urban had been the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Like, I was like, oh great, so Éomer is now the Doctor on board the Enterprise. That is fine with me. Whereas, as you say, the one before, he was a country doctor.
Yes.
That was exactly, he looked exactly the part, you know, and he had the little pinky ring on his finger, and you know, you always knew somewhere in the room there was a shot of whiskey just waiting to be drank.
Absolutely.
And yet Carl Urban does this fantastic both impression and a sort of a twist on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's pretty much the only one of that cast doing like a version of the original character too. I
think so. I think it would definitely him number one, and then You see, because Quinto does a great Spock, but in a way, not to belittle Leonard Nimoy's performance, but emotionless or restrained emotion Vulcan, it's a little bit easier to do that. But again, before I am eaten alive, Leonard Nimoy is amazing as Spock. He is, but Quinto does a great job. Yes. And then, after that, I would actually say probably Chris Pine. There's enough Shatner-isms, but he's definitely his own Kirk.
Right.
And Anton just doing Russian accent.
But like a proper Russian accent.
But a proper Russian accent. Because Anton is, he has Russian parents.
He does.
He's from a Russian immigrant family,
Indeed.
I love that as well. Just the joke of we had to do the Victor. Sorry, I do not understand.
Victor. Oh, so good. So good. And see, that's the thing that not little touches. I think Chekhov's accent of the Wessels, that's one of the things that's kind of crossover as far as most people know, these little Star Trek isms. And that's the other thing that, like I said before, this franchise is over 50 years old, so it's just become part of pop culture worldwide, globally, and so it's kind of accessible in that aspect. But then when I'm watching something, I may be watching a particularly cerebral episode of Next Generation, and Scott might just be like, they haven't left that room with the big glowing popsicle at all. They're not doing anything.
Fair.
Fair.
I mean, that's fair. A lot of Next Gen, I think the fun of Next Gen now is we can go back and watch it, and we're now so conditioned, and I very much include myself in this, we are so conditioned to a much faster pace of television, of storytelling, that you get entire 10-minute scenes where, as you say, we're sitting in a room, we're looking at the glowing thing, and I might say something now and be a couple of lines. We'll have a chat about what I just said, and it's grand. And you can understand, people who are maybe coming to the franchise now who have grown up on faster pace, going I'm not going to scream into the mic, but get to the fucking point.
Yeah.
Is it bad or is it good? Why is nobody firing a phaser? Which I'm massively generalizing. Don't get me wrong,
right, of course.
But you're kind of I mean. See, I grew up with this. I saw this back in, when I think it was about 93, 94, I started kind of catching, or I started remembering catching Trek for the first time. I am told I've been watching it since I was 2 years old. Strangely, I do not have much memory of that. But, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially now when we watch something like Discovery, and that looks like each episode looks like a movie.
Yeah.
It's shot so completely differently, it just has a different feel, different tone. And obviously now when you watch something from the 90s, especially television, the pacing is a little off, and which brings us back to the motion picture. The pacing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 2-hour movie. Feels like 4.
It does. It does. It's a funny one in several ways. It's a movie that it's kind of like, right, get in, get comfortable. We're here. We're going to tell you our story in our time. It's about a 45-minute story told over 2 hours.
Yes.
Now, I am the weirdo who, that 10-minute scene of the Enterprise in dry dock, I will watch that on repeat.
It's very beautiful.
It's oh my god, stunning. Douglas Trumbull, rest in peace, did such an amazing job on that. And again, I am just gushing all over that because it's my favorite Enterprise. I love it so much. However, if somebody was to turn around and go, the music is lovely, the ship is very nice, isn't there some sort of world-destroying cloud about 5 minutes that way?
Yeah.
And you've taken the arseways route to fly around the ship, around the moon. You've kind of taken in Jupiter to come back to this ship.
Oh, yeah.
We don't care about the cloud. Grand, cool. Just so we're on the same page.
Yes, absolutely. The wormhole scene. Oh, my goodness.
The wormhole.
The wormhole scene is like, how long? The sheer amount of that god-awful, red alert, klaxon, noise That's a full, like, if you edit, there could be a supercut of that full 10 minutes.
I'm sure there is.
yeah,
There's probably one of those like 24-hour videos on YouTube of just that.
Yes.
And somebody will listen to it.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they will go through it for a
Absolutely.
copyright claim.
Yes. I came into Star Wars as a young kid. My father and my uncle and my grandfather all watched it. My grandfather would take naps every day in the afternoon at about 3:00 when he was retired, and he would wake up without being disturbed, wake up on his own at 6:00 because Star Trek started. He wouldn't fall asleep at 3. He fell asleep at 3. But he'd wake up on his own because Star Trek was on at 6 on Channel 13, and we'd all have to stop whatever we were watching, change it so we could all sit down and watch Star Trek. And when the motion picture, remember the first time I ever saw the motion picture, I was just kind of like not really understanding what was going on. I was very, very young, but Ilia was just something that I was just like, who is that?
Yeah.
What is she doing? Where can I get a robe that short? And the little...
I can hook you up with a supplier.
a shorty robe. And a little plastic, the little plastic kitten heel, the little lucite heel that she's wearing. Why does, when she's in the sonic shower and the robe forms around her, sure, maybe they can materialize a robe in the sonic shower. The little heels? I don't...
1979, man.
The little heels just show up.
Little disco.
Little disco heel. Love it. But I was just mesmerized by her, the way she would speak. I mean, I know she was doing kind of like I am robot Ilia voice, but the way she would kind of deliver these lines, Kirk unit and all that, and her accents and everything. I was just fascinated by this woman and just how like fierce and disco, and she's bald,
Yep.
And Persis Khambat. I mean, oh my goodness, what can we say? She's just mesmerizing.
She'd be absolutely beautiful. I remember she had been cast in Star Trek Phase 2, which itself is just a fascinating story of, again, all of these efforts, and you kind of get the feeling you're just like, just keep them busy. Throw them another couple of quid and go build some more sets. Oh, shit, we need a film. Okay, yeah. But she had been cast in that. There's these great, what do you call it, like makeup tests nearly of her in original series garb. And she still has, she has a hairstyle for it. They decided to go completely bald for the film. And she is, her command in that film is just wonderful, both as Lieutenant Ilia and as the V'ger probe.
Yeah.
And she's very much you can see the inspiration for early Troy in her. And this is not a word against Marina Sirtis. The execution of early TNG, unfortunately, it went a little bit more for statements as opposed to performance.
Right.
Whereas you can get away with that in a motion picture where you have X amount of time, you kind of need to get to the point a little bit. Over a series. It's a bit like, okay, that's an interesting accent we're choosing there. Okay.
He was just commenting on the Troy
Where
accent.
exactly is she from?
She made it up. She developed this accent because she's
everywhere.
And this actress is, what is the nationality of that actress?
Welsh. I mean,
she's just English Welsh.
She's
Love it.
English.
Kind of like
Welsh.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Well,
like vaguely ethnic for like casting.
Well, no, Marina Sirtis is Greek.
Okay,
but like her parentage is Greek, but she's English. Right.
Yes. Yeah. So it's so funny that as the films, more so even than the series went on, you start to hear her natural accent starts to come through. And if you get to Star Trek Picard, the episode Nepenthe, like that's as close to Marina Sirtis as I think any studio is going to allow Marina Sirtis to be while on film, because she is absolutely hilarious in interviews because there is no filter whatsoever.
Amazing. I always noticed in First Contact when she says the line, "Would you two like to be alone?" I was like, that's just her. There's no Troy in that at all.
I love it. And I love that they gave her character more agency because, as well, if you think about The Next Generation, it had a very strange relationship with strong female characters. If you look at season 1, on the surface, great, you've got Denise Crosby, you've got Marina Sirtis, and you've got Gates McFadden. So fantastic. This is great. We've got representation. This is wonderful. Suddenly, Denise Crosby's gone. because of how things happen behind the scenes. It was poor handling, and suddenly, right, she's out. Then, likewise, Gates McFadden is gone.
Yep.
So suddenly you've gone from 3 female characters to just 1. And then they do bring in Diana Muldaur for season 2.
Yeah.
But that never really works the way they really wanted it to. There was butting heads behind the scenes, and then she's gone. And so you've gone from what seems like good representation in season 1 of not an equal amount of, say, at the time, like male to female, or some sort of gender balance. Suddenly you're just like, you're really not doing too good here. And all the way along, they still keep giving Troy terrible storylines.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, guys, come on, do better. Do better, please.
Yeah. But, I mean, as her storylines get worse or maybe smaller, her hair gets
just keeps
bigger and bigger.
Just becoming more and more drag.
Oh, my God. Do you know the drag queen Jackie Cox?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The most amazing cosplay of Deanna Troi I think I've ever seen.
Jackie has a good one, and also Alaska Thunderfuck has a really good. She has a really good Deanna Troi.
It was Alaska's was a one-off, and she's not a super fan. I think Jackie was like really as a fan going like, I'm going to do Troy.
Oh, that is amazing. I would definitely check out Alaska's. I hadn't seen that one yet. And I love that so much.
Even Beverly Crusher is a very like drag character because she's so like feminine.
And she's just glamorous.
She's so glamorous and beautiful.
Well, I think that's the thing. Gates McFadden is just a stunning woman.
Yeah.
So it's just like
stunning older lady.
She can't get away with just not looking like a glamorous, just like 80s
just
woman.
Looks like she just walked off the set of Dynasty or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I love her. There are photos from the Picard premiere, season 1 premiere, red carpet, and Gates McFadden is in like a purple pantsuit, and she, oh my, I was like, I can't get enough. She looks amazing. I don't know how she does it.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
And it's funny, and thanks to Star Trek Prodigy, she's back.
Yes. I mean, come on. Prodigy, I'm loving Prodigy.
I have to say I'm big fan of Prodigy. I did go in with a bit of trepidation because it's just like, what does it mean to have a show for? Now, never mind. That's all gone. It's excellent.
Yeah. I want to dip back into the movies. I want to go into Star Trek 2 to talk about what I think is the first gay character in Star Trek in Kirk's son David.
Yeah. We're obsessed with this actor, Merrick Butler. Buttrick. Excuse me.
From the Square Pegs.
From Square Pegs. Have you ever seen Square Pegs? American TV show with SJP?
I have not. I know he was in it. No, I've not seen it.
He's cute. So adorable in Square Pegs of this just this cute little emo kid.
He's new
from
wave,
the 80s. New wave, yeah.
But I mean, and you know, I think he's great in the role. I thought he was great in the role that he came back for Next Generation. But the way that David is, I think it's even there on the page. His best friend is his mother. He just wants nothing more than to play bridge with his mother after work. Bridge. Are we meeting later for bridge? Oh,
I love that so much. Sorry, like because you're so right. I mean, the dating pool is probably pretty thin on Regular One.
On Regular One, that's a small station.
Yeah. But I love the confidence he played the character with, and then when that confidence fades, I just love his presence on the screen. I would have loved to have seen him in as many films as we could.
Yes.
I understand, although if our reading of it is say it's accurate and he was at least a queer character, then technically Star Trek 3 falls under the bury your gays trope. Which I'm not sure how I feel about that. Is this like, oh, okay, because I do understand why David had to be the one to take the knife.
To get sacrificed. Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. It's like they're introducing a big idea in Star Trek in that Kirk has this adult son. You know? And so what is this character going to be like. You know, his mother is Carol Marcus. She's just like, you know, this great scientist. So he takes on a lot of her attributes, but at the same time, his father is Jim Kirk. And so, like you said, he does have, you know, very, you know, he has heroic elements to him and all that, but it's like, it's kind of a big deal to write this character that we've never seen before as an audience. And I think we just all accept him pretty easy. And I don't know if it's just because I know, you know, I don't remember not remembering this movie. I just always remember Wrath of Khan. So I can't speak to what it was like the first time seeing this character and being like, David, Kirk's son, who is he? You know? But to me, he's just always been there as this character. And, you know, I think even for Kirk not really knowing about him, you know, what ultimately does happen to him in Star Trek 3, and then Kirk's kind of resentment of that we see later on that's used against him in Undiscovered Country. It's like he does care about David. You know, he didn't have a relationship with him, but when he found out about him, he was just like, okay, that's my son. So it's a very interesting character that has a lot of big ideas around him.
Very much so, because like he's both a fantastic character on his own, and yet he's also a great, not trope so much as facet of Kirk.
Yeah.
Because the death of David, as you rightly say, is a huge part of Kirk's journey for the rest of the original series films. Because even into Generations, because what is Kirk's main nemesis is not the Klingons, it's his own age, it's time, it's the idea of kind of fading away. And this is something that crosses over into Picard, which is, you know, Picard with the loss of Robert and Renee. You know, he is the last Picard. Jim Kirk is potentially the last Kirk. Although, joking, not joking, with the amount of action he got in the original series, the fact that it's only David is like, well, hang on, I think there could be another, you know, kind of like another David out there.
The only one that he knows about.
Exactly, yeah. I love, and like with all, I realized in a way this is before my time, but with massive gratitude to Nicholas Meyer for including the posthumous photo of Merritt Buttrick of David in The Undiscovered Country, who had of course passed away at that stage. That was a relatively late in the day addition, is that they wanted to include this tribute to Merritt Buttrick. And it's so funny because in a way that it becomes a massive plot point in the film.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I mean, great actor, like we said. If listeners, if you can track down Square Pegs,
so
it's a fun
cute,
show.
Square Pegs. I mean, he's in great 80s trash like Death Spa, too.
Oh, that's right, he's in Death Spa.
He's in Death Spa. I think that he's in Fright Night 2.
Oh, okay.
Also.
Yes. I did, yes.
All right. And yeah, unfortunately, he did pass away. He of AIDS-related complications in the very early 90s. While we are on the subject of the Wrath of Khan, put it to rest. Chest, breastplate.
I thought it was a breastplate when I first watched it.
100% real.
That's what I said.
Ricardo, that's some like old man strength right there. that old man, that chest,
man. Those chesticles, they're there on full display. I think that it's completely real. I don't think that prosthetics in 1982 moved that way on the body. You can tell, even a bald cap, you can tell when skin, it doesn't look that much like skin. And that chest, that looks like skin. It moves like a real
just Ricardo,
body.
This barrel-chested older guy.
Like, there's so much talk about the fact that he and William Shatner, they never actually stand in the same room together. Frankly, Kirk's a lucky man.
Yeah. I'd be scared.
He's not winning that fight.
No. Yeah. I mean, you got the huge chest. He's got like the broken, like Starfleet insignia, like medallion, like right there. I love like his, they're not his henchmen. They're his, his compatriots.
His family.
But all of their aesthetic of just the tattered Starfleet uniforms and their long hair.
Very like post-apocalyptic, like Mad Max.
Yeah.
Very much so. I love the fact that after 15 years marooned on a planet, they were able to keep up to date with the 80s fashion trends. And I appreciate
some
that
fierce
much.
workout wear.
Yeah.
They could have stepped off the set of Wrath of Khan and walked onto the physical set by Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
And you know what? It would have been better for it.
Oh, yes. I mean, come on. Ricardo Montalban, great. I believe his main lieutenant is Joaquim, the character. Love that actor. Love that guy. Because he's the one that's just kind of like, he always has a little bit of hesitation about like going too far. He knows that Khan's like a little obsessed.
Yours is the superior intellect, yeah. Poor L. Judson Scott, he's uncredited. He's not credited in the film. There was a little bit of negotiation kerfuffle. Oh, no. Allegedly before I'm sued. But apparently this is on his agent. There was a little bit of too much holding out, and the fact that despite how much of a large role he has, he's not credited at all. Now he would come back to Star Trek. In fact, in the episode that Merrick Butcher returns in, he is also in that episode.
Oh, okay.
He very much is credited in that episode.
Sure. All right. Fun. Star Trek 2 has a lot of really great stuff. Obviously,
we get fierce Kirstie Alley. I know that Kirstie Alley's not a very pleasant woman to talk about, but she's kind of fierce though.
But she's great.
She's excellent in this film. It's one of those credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Kirstie Alley Saavik is. I would have loved to have seen more of. I love Robin Curtis because I remember Robin Curtis seeing that Saavik before seeing Kirstie Alley Saavik for whatever crazy reason. I was introduced out of order to the films.
Was it like salary thing?
Again, there's a lot of he said, she said, but money.
Sure.
Money at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's she has some really funny moments with Kirk and I mean, who's holding up the damn elevator? I love it. But yeah, she's it's a great character. I mean, was Valeris originally written to be Saavik?
So, no, but nobody told Kim Cattrall. So Kim Cattrall was a Trekkie and had been approached to play this female Vulcan in the Undiscovered Country, and she turned it down. She's with the quote, "I don't want to be the third actor to play this same character." And then, now, for the life of me, I don't know whether it was Nicholas Meyer or Leonard Nimoy went, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, Saavik." Went, "No, you're right. It's a female Vulcan role, sure, but no, it's not Saavik."
Okay.
Now, and you see, because that's been mixed up with the story that Roddenberry and Meyer went effectively toe to toe over. Roddenberry was enraged at the idea of turning Saavik into a villain, to which Meyer responded, "She's my fucking character. I'll do whatever the fuck I want with her. Thank you very much." And then, so that story kind of gets mashed together with when Kim Cattrall found out, and it's like, so no. So no is the short answer. And although it would have made sense.
Yeah, it could have. I think so. It's interesting that Nicholas Meyer came in, much like Robert Wise, not having a lot of background in Star Trek, but I feel like Wrath of Khan introduced so many aspects of, Starfleet and the Federation, and that have just become, part of the lore.
If you think about it, obviously, there's so much from the original series which is still in play today, but things like the needs of the many, that comes from the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
You have so much of the way ships are run.
Yeah.
Because of the Navy inspiration that Meyer brought to Star Trek, which Roddenberry, and look, I can understand, you create something and somebody comes along with a new vision. I can understand you railing against that a little bit. We are all precious of our own creations.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes somebody comes along and says, "Thank you, go away now, I'm going to work on this, don't worry." And but so much of the Wrath of Khan remains in play today. I know Meyer himself didn't design, for example, the Reliant, but the Reliant was in a recent episode of Lower Decks.
Oh, yeah.
So like this is these designs remain in use today. Actually, funny enough, so was the refit Enterprise, which I know had originated in the previous film. But yeah, Khan gets name dropped every opportunity that people can.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about J.J. Abrams pretty much remaking The Wrath of Khan and Into Darkness?
So I have no hesitation to say Into Darkness is my least favorite Star Trek film. And yes, I rank Final Frontier over Into Darkness.
Wow.
However, before I make a bunch of enemies, it's not that I don't enjoy Into Darkness. I do. I just think that all of the other films bring something more original to the franchise. I do like the spins that they take on things. I do enjoy Benedict Cumberbatch. He is. I like his performance. There was no reason he couldn't have been John Harrison,
right.
And I've no problem with recasting Khan. But I remember. Do you remember as well? Like all of this talk where they literally. I think J.J. Abrams went door to door of everyone who was looking forward to this film, knocked at the door, and when you opened it, he screamed in your face, "It's not Khan."
Yeah, I think that he even says that on the commentary for Star Trek 2009.
Yeah,
that like we're not going to do Khan.
It's just like so. Like, I mean, you're clearly going to do Khan, right? We're not doing Khan, but it's Khan, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're all like, the fact that Benicio del Toro had passed on, or there had been an issue that he, like, the role had passed on from him before it went to Benedict Cumberbatch. It's like,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Come on. Yeah, I mean, Benicio would be kind of the on-the-nose choice for Khan, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like Into Darkness. I mean, it's kind of what I call a single-serving blockbuster. I think it's fun when I initially watch it, and then you put it on at home on Blu-ray, and you're like, I don't know if this movie really holds up to multiple viewings.
A bit. There are bits of it I thoroughly enjoy. Sure.
Yeah.
It's got. I am a big fan of Bang Bang Boom Boom. It's got a lot of Bang Bang Boom Boom. And I love it. And the fact that Cumberbatch takes down an entire squadron of Klingons with a Gatling gun. I'm just like, sure, sign me up. I am here for this.
That's right.
But super blood and transwarp beaming, we no longer need Starfleet, and we no longer need doctors. Okay.
The transwarp beaming, I can't. Yeah.
Yeah,
bringing Tribbles back from the dead. I want to close out the original series movies so that we can talk a little bit about the other television series. So briefly, I mean, I feel like if we go on the odd even number thing, Search for Spock, great movie, love it. You know what it introduces to me that I love? Off-duty wardrobe. We
get
Mr. Sulu in a leather cape.
Yeah. Pretty fierce.
Actually, funny enough, right, on that, Sulu in the leather cape, yes, 100% I'm here for it. I think he looks fantastic. What on earth is Chekhov wearing on the bridge of the Enterprise when they steal the Enterprise?
Oh, are you talking about his pilgrim blouse?
On the sheet?
Or pink, it's like pink or salmon, and it's got the, oh my God, what is going on there? The collar?
Like it's, I want to. I love the fact that in the film, Chekhov changes between Space Dock and the Genesis planet. It's like they didn't have time to go back and refilm it. And I respect. I do respect them for leaving the scene in.
Yeah. Why not? Captain Kirk saves the whales. What do you think? Love this movie.
This movie. It's a toss-up between that and 6 for my favorite of the original series films.
Yeah.
And you know who I love in The Voyage Home?
Catherine Hicks.
She's brilliant.
I love Catherine Hicks. I think that she's kind of knocking this probably not a lot on the page of that Catherine probably really had to bring to this performance to kind of add a little more substance. But I mean, I think she's working it out in this movie.
Great audience
surrogate. Fantastic.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about The Final Frontier. I think that's all we need to say about that one.
But fan dance.
Fan dance is great.
And now, does the Final Front, is that the one that opens in Yosemite?
Yes.
Okay, that opening is insane.
Go climb a rock. Go climb a rock.
Why is Captain Kirk climbing a mountain?
Because it's there.
Because he wants to make love to the mountain.
Oh, well, also that. Undiscovered Country, I mean, great espionage thriller.
I like that one because it's a nice little insular movie of that we're doing like an espionage movie.
Yes.
Kim Cattrall. Fabulous. Love her.
Iman.
Yeah. Like, amazing.
So good. Yeah. Why did she not
so
act
good.
more after this? Because she was so good in it. Oh, my goodness. I mean, we could talk about obviously we can talk about Star Trek for as long as possible, but unfortunately we do have to wrap things up. Time is not on our side today. But Seán, thank you so much for coming on this show. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much. It's my fault. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for inviting me. I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed this.
Oh, great. Yeah. Us as well. Why don't you plug TrekCulture, tell people where they can find you so our listeners can search you out.
Cool. Okay, you can catch. So first of all, you can catch us on Twitter at TrekCulture. You can catch myself at Seán Ferrick on Twitter as well. We are on YouTube. Type in TrekCulture. You'll find a whole rake of videos there. As you said, we've got behind the scenes. We've got 20 things you didn't know about. Pretty much all of the films we've just discussed. We are working our way through them all. I think Final Frontier just dropped. So
nice.
That one has just been released. We have Undiscovered Country coming up as well. And some fun things behind the scenes of all of them. But guys, thank you so much for inviting me. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very, very
welcome.
welcome.
We'll definitely have you back on.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on.
We'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. But until then, we will bid you adieu. Thank you so much. We'll let you go. Have a great time all the way over in Ireland. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much.
You're
all
welcome.
right, live long and prosper,
You
and
too.
you are the best.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Well, Seán was an awesome guest.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, so good. But I think we're going to keep the conversation going.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about the Star Trek television shows. The movies, obviously, great. We had to kind of shuffle through those a little quickly. But I do want to talk about the shows because I think that is something that kind of brings in a lot of the queer audience to Star Trek.
When you're of the age where when Star Trek The Next Generation was on, you would have been young, so it would have been your first big introduction to Star Trek.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then later on with Voyager, and then Deep Space Nine, and then Voyager, and Enterprise. I'm gonna leave the newer shows, Discovery, off of this. They have fully, formed.
There's fully out characters
yes,
on the
absolutely.
new ones. Yeah,
there's non-binary and trans characters and all that stuff. But I want to talk a little bit first about Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first and foremost, we have Daddy Riker.
Oh yeah. I'm obsessed with Jonathan Frakes as Daddy Riker. Yes. I think that he's so sexy.
Jonathan Frakes is get out of here. First of all, season 1, he comes on the scene, and Jonathan Frakes is 6'3", right? And in season 1, he comes on and he has this baby face and these blue eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we watched an episode that we're going to talk about, and I think that I looked up his age, and he would have been around my age.
Yeah,
when he started the show.
When he started the show, yeah.
I think he was probably in his mid-30s when he began it.
Mm-hmm. And in season 1, he's got this baby face, these blue eyes, and his brown hair, and he's tall, and just has this deep booming voice, and he's the first officer of the Enterprise, right?
Yeah,
and Picard refers to him as number 1. And, in the original series, there wasn't a first officer. That Spock was a science officer.
Mm-hmm.
There was a number 1 in the pilot, which went on to be the episode The Cage, and that was played by Macho Barrett, a female first officer, but that was scrapped because it was a little too progressive. Mm-hmm. But we get, number 1 here. And he's kind of the Kirk surrogate in Next Generation because Picard is so different than Kirk. Riker is the one that goes on away missions and bags all the sexy babes, and he has his affair with Minuet, and he has his affair with Deanna Troi.
I was going to say, him and Deanna Troi, do they sort of have an on again, off again, or is it more of a will they, won't they?
They have
sort of thing.
A previous unseen relationship when they both get on the Enterprise in the first episode, Encounter at Farpoint. They meet each other, and it's a very
They've had a past.
Oh,
They've had a
you're
past.
here, yes. And she, and she calls him Imzadi, which is this like Betazoid like term of endearment, Imzadi, and so it's always a thing whenever she courts someone, an alien, delegate is on the ship, and they're often, going after Troy for whatever reason.
I mean, we can't also forget. I don't know if you're one of those Trek fans that is Star Trek Nemesis like canon, or or
is it fan fiction?
Or is it fan fiction? But just like their wedding in that movie just feels like it should be a soap opera wedding.
It really does.
It feels like the wedding from General Hospital that that everyone was talking about.
Yeah, the wedding of the century. Yeah, it does. They finally get to... Well, and also, if you actually watch all of The Next Generation, there's a whole... Troy has a relationship with Worf for a couple of seasons.
Oh, love Worf.
Yeah, it's great. It's a kind of a charming relationship because she is very like girly, kind of Deanna Troi.
Kind of their stab at an interracial relationship.
I mean, hey, interspecies. But so Riker is this like super alpha male character on the show, but he also has this like daddy vibe. Season 2 starts. And he comes in this full beard. And I remember watching going, oh, I don't know about this beard. Being all of like 11 years old.
Yeah,
right?
I can see that.
And because, it was so different. And it's not like today. I feel like people don't,
It's very like well manicured.
Yeah.
Spends a lot of time on his...
Yeah. But I mean, before the mid 2000s and like hipster culture proliferation,
it's like your hippie dad would have had a beard in like the 70s.
It was a thing that only specific men who had beards wore beards, and then everybody else just shaved. And if you didn't shave, like right now, 5 o'clock shadow and all that is completely accepted in the workplace and on red carpets and all that. But for a long time, you were either clean shaven or you had a beard or you had a mustache. And this was that time, and so he grew.
Did he have a goatee in the first few seasons?
He didn't. No, he never had. A goatee.
He was just like clean face.
Shaven.
So, I think he has one of those faces for a man where I think that he has to have facial hair.
I agree
because he has too much of a baby face.
Yeah.
That I feel like if you put a beard on him, it just kind of butches him up a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Next Generation also. Oh, Riker. There's a lot of great stuff. With Riker that we can go into. There's the famed Riker maneuver, which if you're not familiar with, Google the Riker maneuver. It's this thing, again, he's 6'3", and he did this thing where when he would sit in a chair, he would walk up to the chair and sweep his leg around the back of the chair and sit down on it.
Oh, wow.
Really weird. And people have called it the Riker maneuver because he always does it. He has come forward later on and said that he has a back issue and would have trouble sitting down a certain way, and it's easier for him to like slide in from that position. So that's why he would do it. But it's a funny little character quirk of his. Next Generation also has, Commander Data, which I feel like women always kind of found Data fascinating. He became like this sex symbol, even though he's like this emotionless albino. But I always had an affinity for Data as a little gay kid because he was like the different one. And another big character for me was Wesley Crusher.
Yeah.
I mean, not only was he the kid,
I think that he's probably a few years older than you.
Yeah, he's about 4 or 5 years older than me, Will Wheaton. And the reason he was put there was to get
fans are always really hard on this character.
Fans are very critical of Wesley Crusher. Shut up, Wesley. It's a whole thing. He's a Mary Sue. Whatever.
Kind of like originated the whole Mary Sue thing.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of in the fan fiction world. I never had that much of a problem with Wesley as a kid. I kind of see it now. I definitely see it now. The problems with the character. But, he was there for a purpose, and that purpose was to get kids to watch the show.
It's kind of the child surrogate for the audience.
Yeah. But for me as a kid, when I watched, I just thought Will Wheaton was super dreamy. It was just this
pretty cute.
boy, he's very cute,
The cute boy from Stand By Me.
Yeah, it's Gordy. He's all grown up, you know.
And what like a dream job for like a child.
Hey.
Of like you're part of the crew on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like that would have had to have been so exciting as a child actor to do.
I mean, I'm sure that Will Wheaton and I know that Will Wheaton has a lot to say about the character because it was very much like, oh, you're this genius and everybody loves you. You could do no wrong.
I've seen Alex Winter's child starred documentary, and he seems to have a lot of issues that he's still working out from his fame as a child.
Yeah, which is fair.
I think a lot of the backlash to Star Trek kind of got to him.
Yeah,
as it probably would any totally young person.
But for me as a young kid watching it, I was very much like I was all about Wesley, you know.
Okay, so you're all about the character.
I totally was.
I love that.
I totally was. You know, he was there with his mom. He had no siblings. You know, he was super smart. So
child genius.
Not that I was like a genius or smarter. I didn't identify with that. But I just, you know, I was just like, all right, there's a kid there.
Kind of a kid holding his own.
Yeah.
Next to all of these strong characters.
Yes, yeah. And again, super cute. And he wore. I mean, the thing about Star Trek is the uniforms on these shows. They don't leave anything to the imagination.
No, were we just watching? We were watching Star Trek: The Motion Picture last night, and you can fully see some like dick print. In all of those uniforms on all of the guys.
Yes, indeed. Our main cast, they have a little tunic that covers it, but there's another version of the uniform that it's just a catsuit. Mm-hmm. And when the men are wearing those, you never see Kirk or McCoy or Spock in that one, but you see other people, and you're just like, oh, holy moly. You can see it all. But, so when Wesley's walking around in these like little jumpsuits, I'm just like 11 years old going, all right, I like this show. Deanna Troi is a drag queen.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned that sort of as the seasons went on.
Yeah,
this actress's hair just kept getting larger and larger.
Absolutely, but yeah, I mean, Troy is kind of amazing. She's just like a glamorous woman. We talked earlier about Dr. Crusher,
the vague accent. Of Deanna Troi, yes. I'm obsessed with.
I mean, Marina Sirtis has gone on record saying that she did all this work developing this accent so that it would be like so specific to this character, and just like, yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Now, is she from? Tell me a little of the backstory of her. Is she from Earth?
Deanna Troi is half human.
Okay.
Her father's human, and her mother is a Betazoid, and her mother is Loaxana Troi, and she is everything. Is she played
by anyone like?
She's played by Majel Barrett, Gene Roddenberry's wife.
Okay,
who was #1 on the original series. She also voices the ship's computer. She has a lot to do with Star Trek. She's the first lady of Star Trek, Majel Barrett. Loaxana Troi is amazing. She has a major crush on Captain Picard, and he's always like, "Ooh, I gotta go that way. Here she comes." They have a very funny dynamic. She's I'm not gonna remember Loaxana Troi's full title, but she is like royalty on Betazoid, right. Beta Z. And she has the big manservant that's played by Lurch from the Addams Family, who follows her around everywhere and carries all of her wardrobe in like a space suitcase.
That's also very Spaceballs.
Yes, it's very Spaceballs. And as a Betazoid, full Betazoid, Loaxana, her mother, has full telepathic powers. Read people's minds.
Oh, wow, okay.
Including Deanna's.
That's probably why Picard didn't like to be around her.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the two of them can talk back and forth using their thoughts. But Deanna, being half human, with other non-Betazoids, she's only empathic.
Okay.
Not telepathic. Mm-hmm. And as an empath, she can sense their feelings. So that's why she's so good as the ship's counselor, the ship's psychiatrist, because this show was from the 80s. So, we talked a little bit about with Sean about Star Trek kind of dipping their toe into issues. The original series was very issues-based. So there would be episodes about racism, and there would be episodes about xenophobia, and they would try to talk about, feminism, women's issues, but being Star Trek, and especially in the original series, wasn't always perfect.
Probably women were
women's lib.
Women's lib. It's this new thing, Pete.
Yeah.
Well, I take it that's sort of the character of Uhura, of like that's probably all that they felt like they needed.
They got
of that. We have this character.
We've got Uhura. She's on the bridge.
Fierce black woman on the bridge.
There's your women's lib.
There's your
right
women's
there.
lib.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that like actresses and comedians like Whoopi have talked about how much that character meant to them when they were a young girl watching Star Trek, of watching this cool black woman not playing a maid. Yes. Like she gets to like roll up her sleeves and have fun with everyone else.
Absolutely. Yep. And so in The Next Generation, they famously produced an episode titled The Outcast.
We watched it last night.
And The Outcast obliquely deals with homophobia?
Homophobia. Well, I mean, it's one of those things that when we watch this episode now in 2022, there's like a whole movement of gender neutral, which has become very prevalent. And it's one of those things that they would have never even thought of that in 1992 when this episode came out. But it's interesting to revisit this now and see what you draw from it.
Yes. The Outcast is the 17th episode from season 5, the 117th episode altogether.
Air date March 14th, 1992.
And that's the thing. In 1992, they literally did not have the language to say things like non-binary, to say things like gender neutral, to use they them pronouns, and it's all.
I think they use the word androgynous, an androgynous race.
Yes. So okay, in this episode, this is the Wikipedia.
Yeah, give us like the one sentence summary.
The Wikipedia. In this episode, Riker falls in love with Soren, a member of an androgynous race, which finds gender specificity unacceptable. Okay. And then within the episode, there's some science stuff. They always had like their basic Star Trek premise that they had to find a lost shuttlecraft in this case. There are, at the very beginning of the episode, the Enterprise is contacted by the Guinan. And the Guinan are this, as they're represented on the show, as they're called in the captain's log, an androgynous race.
Which is kind of funny that when I hear androgynous now, I almost think of just androgynous being visual.
Yes.
Of that, it's not necessarily sexuality, but I think of it pure visual.
An aesthetic.
An aesthetic,
like, I'm going to look, that's my look today is androgyny, right? But what we would refer to today as a non-binary or a genderless,
gender neutral
race of people. They have no gender. They asked the crew to help them find a shuttle that has gone missing. Now, the thing about the production of this show is that it appears on screen that all of the Guinan are played by women, by cisgendered female actresses. And they all have a little bowl haircut, a little Mo Howard from the Three Stooges haircut, and they wear gray jumpsuits.
Yeah. Kind of a little Edna mode.
A little Edna mode, and they kind of have like, they're probably bind their chests to be a little, androgynous.
And like when they made this in 92, they felt like they probably couldn't even put men in. Yeah. Even as like background players.
I think in the background there might be one that's a man, but I couldn't tell. But maybe that's the point.
I think they're all women. Yeah,
but they're all of them that speak. They're all female, and then most of them that you can see, they all look like clearly they're women, right? In this in this Mo Howard wig. So Riker and the one main Guinan, their name is Soren. They are working together to like find the shuttle, and Riker and Soren hit it off. And
Soren has a lot of questions about humans and their sexuality and their sexual organs. There's some cute scenes with Jonathan Frakes, where she's asking him about his dick.
Where she's straight up like, show me your dick.
She's very curious about his dick. And I mean, Riker is a gentleman too.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, just sort of kind of tells her what's up with sexualities on planet Earth.
With gender and, how, you know, and all of that.
I also really like her interactions with Beverly Crusher, too.
Yes.
When she asks her about being a woman.
Yes. Yeah.
Doctor, you are female.
Yes.
Forgive me, I do not mean to be rude, but I'm curious. What is it like?
Well, it's just the way I am. I've never really thought about what it's like.
I notice you tend to have longer hair, and you arrange it more elaborately, and you apply color to your bodies.
Color?
You put color on your mouth, and your eyes, your cheeks, and your fingernails. The men don't.
That's true.
Then it is up to women to attract the men.
Oh, no. Men want to be attractive, too. Believe me, they just go about it differently.
No color.
No color. They like to pretend they're not doing anything to attract a woman, even when it's the most important thing on their minds.
This is very confusing. Then, are women considered more superior? Or the men?
Neither. In the past, women were often considered weak and inferior. But that hasn't been true for a long time.
Because Riker has questions as well. He's very much like, what is, you know, I can't even imagine not having any gender. It doesn't sound like any fun. And, you know, when they talk about reproduction, and he's
reproduction,
and he's just like, it's very, you know, pleasurable for, you know, for us. And
because she almost thinks that it's just, you just have to inseminate the woman, and like, that's all.
Yeah.
And Riker is kind of like, well, there's a little more to it than that.
Yeah.
We get a little more into it.
Yeah. So when they have like a little, I think there's a little accident on the ship, so she has to go talk to Crusher and get, you know, straightened up. And then she's talking about Crusher, and she's like, "Oh, you're a female," and I can tell because like you wear makeup on your face, and
she
wear your hair.
She clocks the mug.
Yeah. And your hair is elaborate.
I mean, we've
like,
talked about it
fierce.
with Sean, but I mean, Gates McFadden.
Yes,
she's so beautiful, like so just like classically beautiful woman that you would have seen working the rounds in the 80s.
Yes, she came from choreography.
I was wondering if she was a dancer or a model.
She was a dancer, yes. And I think she's choreographed some interesting things. She actually, I think she did some of the Muppet movies. There's a lot of like song and dance numbers in those.
Okay.
I know she's in one as a on-screen role.
Oh,
but I
she is the director of choreography and puppet movement from Labyrinth.
Well, there you go.
So she helped choreographed Dance Magic Dance.
Yes.
How fierce is that?
Yeah. And her name is Cheryl. Gates is her maiden name. So
okay.
She just went by Gates McFadden for some reason.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty fierce.
Yeah. But much like, you know, like Peppa from Salt and Pepper, her real name's Cheryl. So Soren finally has like a coming out scene.
Yeah.
With Riker.
And it's played straight up like a coming out scene.
Yeah.
Too.
And Riker is fully just like, well, I'll be damned.
I mean, I have a hard time picturing the writer of this episode not thinking of a coming out scene.
Well, of course, yeah.
Like, I think that you sort of have to draw on that when writing it, and that's how it's played, too.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is kind of boundary pushing for 1992.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been even more boundary pushing if this would have been played by a man. It would have been a little more interesting. But, I mean, 92. Yeah. I get it.
Well, did you continue to read the trivia from IMDb about this?
No, tell me.
Jonathan Frakes was pushing for them to hire a man.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. He was like, "No, it'll be better.
It'll be more impactful if it is a man."
Absolutely.
Sure.
I think that's exactly what he said. That it would be impactful.
I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that he was game for that.
Yeah.
To really go in that direction.
He said that the episode was not daring enough.
Okay.
And then once they cast this woman, that she should have been more evidently male presenting.
Okay, sure.
If they were going with women, or female actors. So yeah, I think that's really cool of Jonathan Frakes to be like, if we're gonna do this, let's just fucking do it.
Yeah.
But again, I think this is boundary pushing enough. It's one of those things where you think, Star Trek is a sci-fi property. So while this whole episode is talking about that there are a lot of queer fans, there are probably more straight fans that are watching going, what in the hell am I watching?
Did you watch that weird episode of Next Gen last night?
Yeah. Where Riker kissed a dude, The rest of the episode is crazy because we find out that not only is it like this like cultural like taboo that some of the people do identify as male or female, but that when it's found out that they're completely brainwashed with conversion therapy.
Soren also talks about knowing children when they were young.
Yeah.
Of getting bullied.
Yeah.
When they pick a specific gender, too. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that they were taken away.
Yeah.
Put into the conversion therapy, and they came back. And in front of the whole school was just like, I'm cured. That shit's real, man. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So, the rest of the episode is kind of nuts because she kind of gets outed, put on trial.
Yeah.
Riker goes to the trial and is like, no, this is whack. You can't do this. And they're like, no, it's done. She's going to be converted. And Riker fully offers to give Soren asylum and take them onto the Enterprise as like a refugee.
Yeah.
And there's like, no, can't do it. Prime directive. Can't interfere. Mm-hmm. The last scene where Riker and Worf go down to the planet to break Soren out.
I mean, also
amazing.
Kind of a big episode for Worf too, because you kind of get some, I'll say homophobia.
Yeah.
When he finds out that there's only one gender.
Yeah.
And he's just like, the fuck is up with that?
Yeah.
He's just like doesn't get it.
Yeah. I can't with those people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In their poker game, which you...
Oh, my God, the poker game I love. Just like a Thursday night on the Enterprise poker with Data in his, like, green visor.
Yes. The senior staff. So this is one of those things, if you worked on the Enterprise as, like... What would you do in the Enterprise? Would you run, like, the pet store?
Oh, geez. I would probably work in the gift shop or something. I would be, like, a barista.
You can work with Whoopi.
Something lame. Okay, I'll be Whoopi's barback.
Yeah, you can be Whoopi's barback. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk shit with her and, like, clean tables.
Yeah.
I would do that on the Enterprise.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do. Yeah, I'd probably...
I'm definitely not cool or smart enough to, like, work on the bridge.
To be crew, yeah.
I don't want that much responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know. Would I run the daycare center? Would that be a bad idea? Probably. Yeah. Maybe I'd open up
I think that you would work in
candle store.
In human resources.
In human resources? Okay,
You'd be making sure... Well, I don't know. Are you paid on the Enterprise?
They don't believe in money.
So it's... they're giving you a place to stay. So, exactly. I'd imagine that they don't really pay you.
Yeah.
But you'd work in human resources.
Sure. Yeah, I'd make sure that everybody's, like... comm badges are working. Mm-hmm. If they get locked out of their quarters... you
work customer service now for a software company, so you could do something like that.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they have any problems with their replicator in their quarters, they call me and I'd like fix it. Okay, sure. There we go. And you're the barback at 10 forward. Love it. But they're probably gonna need some help every now and then at the pet store. Like, I wonder if they have if there is a full like mall in the Enterprise.
Spaceball status.
It's big enough. The Enterprise is huge. As there are videos on TrekCulture.
Close all the stores in the mall.
There are videos on TrekCulture talking about how big physically the Enterprise is, and that it's so big, and that even with a crew of like 800 people, that you could like walk down those hallways and like not run into anybody for like 5 full minutes. So there's probably a full mall with like a circus and like a food court. Yeah, all that. Anyway.
I like to kind of dig into shit like that.
Yeah, the day-to-day.
The day-to-day life of working on one of these ships. And the poker game, I love it.
Yeah, we love the poker game.
I mean, I kind of want to see like a strip poker game with all of these characters.
Hey, there you go.
I mean, I think that you'd have to take off that full jumpsuit, so that would be like one hand.
Well, that's one piece, just a zipper. Yeah. By this time, the top is a pullover and it's separate from the pants. But not for the ladies. They still had the one piece. Sexism. So yeah, Worf exhibits a little bit of like just kind of he's weirded out kind of by the Janai, but then later on when he talks to Riker, he's like,
he's gonna go help break
all
her
right,
out.
Bitch, let's do this. You're my friend, and if you're gonna go down there and bust some heads, I'm going with you, which is great.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, perfect Worf. Yeah, moment. And it's just so sad when they go down there and Soren's like,
yeah,
too late.
They've just sort of resigned.
Yeah. Well, I think they already started the brainwashing process. I think they already started the conversion therapy.
Yeah.
So Soren's just like, nope, I love it here. I'm happy. I'm cured. I don't want to be a female anymore. And it kind of ends the show on a bummer note, which is, not usual.
And she was they were never heard nor seen from again.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the last we hear of Soren or the Janai. But, well, they're rude anyway. With that conversion therapy nonsense.
But good episode.
But yeah, it's a really good episode.
Yeah, super memorable.
It's a famous one for that for that subject matter and storyline.
Yeah, especially kind of where culture didn't really have specific a lot of language for gender neutral.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think they were just going for this allegory about gay people, and they're like, okay, here's a way we can do it with without really doing it.
And it's
but
sort of like
so
30 some years later, it works almost literally.
Yeah. In so doing that, they introduced these concepts of non-binary and gender, gender neutral and all of that, which they weren't even really going for or trying to address. Yeah, and Riker's just like, I don't know what to do with your pronouns. I can't call you it. And Soren doesn't even say, well, we use they, them. Soren's just like, oh, we have a word you couldn't understand.
I was even calling Soren a she earlier, too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Don't misgender Soren. Well, I think the Soren of the beginning of the episode would have gladly gone by she.
Oh, this is very, very true.
Riker refers to Soren as she. They're not they, them until after the brainwashing. So, yeah. So it's complicated.
There's layers.
Yes, there's layers, like an onion. Not a lot more with queer characters in Next Generation. We've talked a little bit about, you and I have talked about the character of Ensign Hawk from First Contact, the movie.
Yeah.
Played by Neil McDonough.
I've seen Neil McDonough randomly around the city. I think I've seen him like twice.
Oh, okay.
I've seen him at the Grove.
Interesting.
I think that he was doing press for one of the Paul Blart Mall Cop movies, and I saw him at the Grove movie theater, and I was like, oh, shit.
All right. Well, this character, Ensign Hawk, apparently in the script, there is a line indicating that...
Or if they shot it, it was cut.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Side note, I just read this thing that Neil McDonough is kind of has like a, I don't know if it's like a clause in his contracts or something, but he is very spiritual and will not kiss a woman on screen because he's married.
Oh, that's very sweet of him.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. Okay.
I feel like that might kind of
unless it goes
cut off some opportunities.
Unless it goes in some weird Sisters on Full House. Kirk Cameron directions. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some growing pains direction. I don't know. I don't think it goes that far, but it is. I thought it was a little interesting. But that's a side note about Neil McDonough. And so that's kind of the only really other.
I mean, in Star Trek Beyond a few years ago, it was sort of an issue that Sulu was gay.
Yes.
And George Takei kind of made some controversial statements of this is not the character of Sulu,
right.
Which I would argue that the J.J. Abrams movies are operating from a completely different timeline. And why can't Sulu be like?
Because it's just the timeline. The timeline doesn't change your orientation. The timeline just changes.
Like this is such an opposite character from what he was playing,
right?
Or like in a different universe. Yeah. So why can't the character be gay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. True. I want to talk briefly about Deep Space Nine has I hesitate to call it a lesbian kiss, but there's a kiss between two female characters, between Dax and Kira.
Now, is Deep Space Nine the one that you said that they always get their guys like with their shirt off?
No, that's Enterprise.
That's okay.
Enterprise, yeah. Deep Space Nine is the one on the space station by the wormhole. It's very action-oriented. You don't like that one at all.
Is that the one with Scott Bakula?
That's Enterprise.
Enterprise, okay.
Yeah. Deep Space Nine.
I think I would like Enterprise more.
I think you'd like Enterprise more. Deep Space Nine has it's got Worf. He moved over after Next Generation ended. But it has a female on female kiss. It has some interesting concepts with Dax, who is a symbiotic character. Mm-hmm. They are a centuries old slug that gets put in different bodies. As the bodies die off, it gets taken out and put in a new one. Its previous host was an old man.
Okay.
And so Commander Sisko refers to Dax as old man, even though she's like a 28-year-old beautiful woman. And Worf meets her, and they fall in love, and they end up getting married. And one of the Klingons, a very old Klingon, there's a very cool line where he's just like, hey, it's Dax, it's my old friend. And she's like, well, yeah, it's me. And he's just like, sweet, what's been going on? You know, doesn't care that it's like a lady now. Just kind of like, all right, you just changed your gender right in front of me. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Voyager. Captain Janeway.
Captain Janeway.
I mean,
you love Captain Janeway.
I love Kate Mulgrew. Mm-hmm. I love Captain Janeway. She's doing a permanent Katharine Hepburn impression.
I mean, that's just sort of her gig.
That's her gig.
That's been her. I mean, even before Star Trek, I think that she just sort of emulated Katharine.
Yeah, I'm not coming for that wig. I'm just like, I'm here for it.
That like mid-Atlantic voice.
Yes. Yeah. And she's a female captain. She's shoot. I feel like in most of my grown-up jobs, I have had female bosses.
Same. Yep.
You know, and I'm just like, all right.
I answer to female authority well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And so to me, it's not like, oh, wow, that's so weird to have a female captain. But it's like, that was groundbreaking, you know. The 7 of 9 character comes around in season 4. And there's been famously some talk of, is there sexual tension between Janeway and 7 of 9 in their sometimes antagonistic relationship? I know that some of the fans are just like, I don't see it. You're projecting things on there, but those could also be people that just, I don't know, maybe they just don't want to see things.
I mean, that's what you could say about a good majority of the movies that we do on our show.
Exactly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Definitely with something like Fight Club that we've done.
Yeah, exactly. People saying, "Oh, you're just putting what you want to see on there. Your agenda. You're broadcasting your agenda onto something." It's like, no, we're not broadcasting our agenda. It's there. So I think that famously there is some tension between these two characters, and there's been a lot of slash fan fiction.
I mean, I just immediately think of comic book guy.
Oh, Captain Janeway.
Downloading his Captain Janeway image on his computer.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I mean, Star Trek famously has always, in every show, there's always a sexy, beautiful female character in tight-fitting clothes.
Yeah.
You know? And, I mean, I think they kind of broke the mold when they got to Jerry Ryan.
Yeah.
In this catsuit. Mm-hmm. It's like, Babu is...
Jerry Ryan's pretty fierce.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is like bombshell. But the thing is, and I think they tried to pair her off with Chakotay, and I think, you know, Ensign Kim was into her for a while, but Ensign Kim was into everybody with tits just because he was hard up. But, you know, I think really what the fans took from it was this relationship that she had with Janeway, which, you know, like I said, it was a little antagonistic, but I think there might be something there.
Okay, all right.
To it. So yeah, I would suggest looking into that, Googling that, seeing some. I think there's some supercuts on YouTube about, you know, Janeway and Seven and their little.
Now, what was the Star Trek show of the guy that was in like his like blue and his blue
little blue
tank and his little tight fitting trunks?
Yes, so that is Enterprise.
That scene was giving me very those gay movies that are shot in the valley with just like
that are on Amazon Prime.
This guy that's just like walking down a hallway with like ambient noise.
Yes. So Enterprise is with Scott Bakula. It takes place before the original series, so it's a very early version of Star Trek.
I remember you got really excited during one of the newer Star Trek movies, and you saw the ship from this one.
That's in Beyond.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they reference quite a bit of Enterprise Easter eggs in Beyond. The men on Beyond are all built, and they're all super handsome.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a type.
Yeah, definitely a type. Scott Bakula, the engineer, his name is Trip. The actor is named Connor Trenier. They found any and every excuse to put him in his Starfleet issue underwear. They would do this thing because it was early on in Star Trek lore. So they would do this thing where when they would come back from alien planets, they would have to kind of like what do you call it? Like scrub each other down.
Sure. Make sure that you didn't get any germs or anything.
Yeah. So they'd like get put in this room, which is like a sauna, and they'd have to like rub this goo on each other. They did a lot.
All right.
They did a lot. And I mean, you can also just Google like Star Trek Enterprise shirtless, and there's a ton of pictures, including Bakula, you know, who's a very handsome man. You know, even at that time, you know, he's was the captain, but he still had a great bod. And so they found every, you know, chance to put Trip in that underwear. And there was that scene where he's like, the entire ship is knocked out, and he's like tiptoeing around in the little tight blue panties.
Okay.
So,
he this actor did that weird Stargate Origins show, which followed the old lady when she was a young girl.
Oh, interesting.
He was on that, and I think that they just that was a full series. It looks like. Oh, I was wondering if they just did like a TV movie of it when it was passed, but it looks like they did it looks like they did at least one season of it.
Oh, okay, okay. So that's Enterprise. Also a fun show. I didn't watch the entire run of it, so I don't have...
Enterprise ran from 2001 to 2005, and probably one of the last major Star Trek shows before the new ones on CBS.
It absolutely was, yeah. When Discovery rolled around, like we said, we've got, you know, Wilson Cruz, we've got Anthony Rapp, two out queer actors playing a couple on the show. We've got a lot of, you know, new characters coming in. So there's a lot of representation on that show. So I don't feel like we really need to go too deep in there. But there's so much in Star Trek, and there's so much, you know, I think at the end of the day, you know, Sean kind of hit it when he said that, you know, the show is about a very hopeful version of the future.
Yeah,
you know,
especially how it was when it was initially created.
Yes. And so I think that's why people just have a very hopeful kind of outlook when they watch it. And maybe that is why, you know, so many queer people kind of gravitate to it and stick stick with it for so long.
Well,
so.
I like Star Trek because it reminds me of my relationship with you.
Oh.
So I didn't grow up on a lot of Star Trek. I haven't seen a lot of Star Trek. I think I've gotten to the point where I've seen all of the movies.
Sure.
I've seen them all at least once.
Yeah.
Just kind of bits and pieces of all the shows, but it mainly reminds me of my relationship with you because you love Star Trek. We got our engagement photos taken at Vasquez Rocks.
Yes.
Vasquez Rocks.
Yeah.
And there is a very famous episode of the original series where they go to Vasquez Rocks.
Yes.
And just when you walk around that little park, it's like you've stepped into a Star Trek episode.
Yep. It's like you're on Vulcan. Yeah. So, yeah, the big part of my childhood, and I love it.
You have a Star Trek tattoo and you have a Star Wars tattoo. You have both.
I do. Absolutely.
You kind of prove all of the fans wrong of just like you have to pick a side.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do not. Yeah, you
can love both.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, I mean, I hope this kind of like shed a little bit of light into our Star Trek, and I'm glad we were able to get to it because I was worried we were going to be able to talk about Star Trek because none of the
and I know that we've always talked about maybe doing a TV month of talking about stuff like Star Trek or My So-Called Life or Square Pegs, just sort of these kind of cult TV shows that we loved. So I like that we just kind of had a broad discussion of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. So, thanks again to Seán for coming on the show. That was great. I wish we had a little bit more time, but hopefully we'll be able to get him on in the future to do another episode, and we can talk to Seán a little bit more.
And you said he's a pretty big he has a big YouTube channel. If you're into Star Trek, probably
TrekCulture.
TrekCulture.
The TrekCulture channel. It's pretty. If you're into Star Trek, I definitely recommend checking it out. They do full recaps of all the shows. They do really fun, videos about taking deep dives into different ships and different aspects of.
He dissects the uniforms a lot.
He loves the uniforms. He's a big cosplayer, so Seán likes to talk about the uniforms. So go check that out over at TrekCulture on YouTube. And go follow Seán on Instagram as well. So yeah, I think it's just about that time in the show.
Wrap stuff up.
Yeah, time to wrap it up. And I think right now we will take this moment to do some Patreon shoutouts.
Patreon shoutouts, yay!
Indeed. Let's say a big ol' hello and hey and thank you to all of our patrons: Melanie, Christopher, Russ, Seth, Esperanza, Nicole, Susan, Barry, JJ, Leighton, Shelby, Michael, Charlie, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Joshua, Emily, Millie, Aaron, Melinda and Jim, Jessica, Nick, Christine, Nick and Shannon, Christine, and Rufino.
Thank you for being.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for following us on Patreon. And out there, listeners, if you're not there, head over to patreon.com/movies that made us gay to see all the supplemental content we have to offer.
Yeah.
Lots of fun stuff on Patreon, including commentary tracks, behind the scenes photos.
We'll have another commentary track out very, very soon.
Yes, indeed.
When this episode comes out.
Newsletters, seasonal playlists.
Our
more.
Oscar episode will be coming out soon. Oscars at the end of the month. It'll end up on Patreon about the week before.
Yes, indeed. So go check that out. We'd also love it if you would rate and review us. Head over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and give us 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars.
Yes, indeed. And also write us a review. If you write us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Why not? You can follow us on social media. We are at Movies That Made Us Gay on Instagram and Facebook.
And on Twitter at NTMUGPod.
Yes, indeed. You can follow our personal socials. My name's Pete. I am at Peter Lasagna on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and follow my letterbox just under my name.
Yes, indeed. So, thanks for taking this journey into the future with us, and we'll be back very soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.